Last time on You Didn't See Nothing, Lil Frankie goes to trial.
Defense attorneys tried to portray Caruso as a good boy who attended church and even crossed racial lines in donating food baskets to the poor.
A jury finds him guilty of aggravated battery and a hate crime. He's sentenced to 8 years. But the other attackers, they don't even go to trial.
In Chicago, 2 young white men have negotiated a plea bargain and received a light sentence.
They made us an offer we couldn't refuse. We just couldn't refuse the probation.
No jail time. Some of Frank Caruso's supporters were pissed. And the case divides the black community even deeper.
Nigga Martin, we still here! How much money did Frank Caruso give you today? You piece of snow. How much you get today, nigga Martin?
It's mid-August, and I'm on the edge of Bridgeport, right where it meets Chinatown. They got the whole street in front of this church blocked off. Italian flags everywhere. It's a street festival, like a big-ass block party. They got a little parade, the whole nine. It's called the Feast of St. Rocco. Old guys with mustaches, smoking cigars, women looking after the kids running up and down the street. It's like a big family reunion. A lot of people wearing white. And it feels like everybody knows everybody, except for me. I'm standing here texting on my phone, trying to find my producers, Bill and Dana. We came just to get some sounds of real Italians on the ground in Bridgeport. And I am the only black man in sight. It's the same festival you see in Godfather 2, in the scene where Vito Corleone murders Don Fanucci. And the sound of fireworks covers the sound of his gunfire. This church I'm in front of ain't Italian anymore. It's Chinese. But every year they still put up a banner that says in big letters, St. Rocco, pray for us. And underneath in smaller letters, in memory of Bruno Rodi Sr., Lil Frankie's great-grandpa, the guy who worked with Al Capone. So here I am, 6'1", sticking out like a sore thumb, looking for my producers when this little guy with gray hair approaches me. He got on a yellow t-shirt and a matching fedora, and he walks up and he's like, "Hey, Denzel Washington, can I get your autograph?" And you get that a lot, don't you? And I look and I'm like, oh shit. And then he says, "My name's Frank Caruso." I'm Yohance Lacour, and you didn't see nothing. After Frankie Caruso Jr. went to prison, most Chicagoans just moved on. But then there was another front page story in the Chicago Sun-Times. It said that Frankie Caruso received a special visitor while in prison. That visitor? Lenard Clark. There's a photo of them standing together. Frankie's in a prison uniform with his arm around Lenard, who's wearing baggy jeans and looking like he's grown about 5 inches since he was last in the news. He's taller than Frankie now. Lenard's got a big smile on his face, grinning from ear to ear, but his arms are folded tight, real tight. Here they are talking about that on WBEZ.
The Sun-Times reports Clark and the man convicted of attacking him, Frank Caruso Jr., are developing a friendship and have met in prison on 2 occasions.
Friendship. That's how folks describe this relationship. A reconciliation.
The news got us thinking, what would you do if someone who brutally attacked your trial tried to reconcile? So we went out to get your reactions.
God wants us to forgive, and you can only move ahead when you forgive other people.
No, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that at all. I wouldn't accept that at all. I would not reconcile with that family at all. I'm sorry. My kid's not going to go around them because you never know the guy come back around, have, thoughts about it. I'm sorry, I wouldn't.
The media love to talk about reconciliation. Easier to talk about racial healing than it is to fix stuff that's broken. This picture of Frankie and Leonard seemed to be part of a larger play to get his prison time reduced. And eventually it was reduced on appeal. He wound up doing around 2 years behind bars. The newspaper said Frank Sr. was a presence in Leonard's life too. They say he taught Leonard how to drive a car and ride a horse, and that Leonard had become like a stepson to Frank Sr. More bullshit far as I was concerned. I find Dana and Bill at the festival. It's Dana's first time using a microphone in the field.
You hear it? All right. Kind of hold that like this. Are you recording?
My mind is racing, and I tell him what just happened.
You seem like you're in like a daze.
That was wild as fuck. I'm the only black man standing there because I stood out like a motherfucker. I'm off to the side on the edge of the crowd, and Caruso Sr. goes out of his way to talk to me. Up walks this little man in a hat. Like, hey, Denzel Washington, can I get an autograph? You get that a lot, don't you? Do you get that? And I'm looking at his face like, oh, shit. And he says, my name's Frank Caruso. I started to say, I know. But I was fucked up. I didn't see that one coming. And he starts explaining to me what's going on here. And I'm only halfway hearing what he's saying because in my mind, I'm still like, what the fuck? People in the crowd are looking at us all kind of sideways. And I'm looking at him like, you fucking Frank Caruso. And then I saw the Frankie tattoo on his arm. The tattoo's on his forearm, barbed wire with Frankie in cursive. We keep getting interrupted by people who clearly have a lot of respect for him. Women introducing him to their kids, old guys coming to kiss him on the cheek, and they all looking at me like, who's the black guy? Meanwhile, I'm starting to get paranoid. Is this really a coincidence? Or did he approach me because he knows who I am? By this point, I've interviewed folks who are close to him. I get to wondering if when I was pulling police records, because something had gotten back to him, I ain't know what was up. So when he asks my name, I tell him I'm Joseph, which is my middle name, so I'm not lying. Honestly, my real gut was that he saw the only black man out there and actually wanted to be welcoming. That was actually my gut after we talked for a couple minutes. It becomes obvious that dude has no idea who I am, much less the story I'm working on. He's just telling me the history of the festival. There was no hostility, and it was no like, why are you here, questioning. It was, hello, you know about this? Let me tell you about it. How it's been going on for 100 years and some more shit. I got that vibe that I get from people who are as much of an ally as they know how to be. Honestly, just for real, he was doing the shit that you would expect a motherfucker to do if all of that reconciliation talk were real. He opened up communication, tried to make me feel welcome, explain to me what's going on. And which is, if I were him and I were truly on some mission to create some sort of harmony there and build bridges, I would do that genuinely. I mean, there can be some truth to the redemption side of things. When I tell Caruso I'm a journalist, I know about his son and that I'm working on a project about Bridgeport and what happened in 1997, the whole vibe shifts. And he asked to go off the record. I agreed. So I can't tell you what we talked about. But after that, I asked if he'd sit down for an interview sometime and gave him my number. It was just one hitch. They had to go find somebody's phone, which felt mafia as hell, for real. Like, you don't have a phone on you. Like, that's some gangster shit. Who doesn't carry a phone?
But so while we were talking before...
A guy Caruso said was his son-in-law brought one over for him. Meanwhile, all around us, people are following this parade, praying to the statue of St. Rocco, the occasional firework. Yeah, we'll see if I get a call. I started getting paranoid again. I didn't want none of them following me to my car. I half joked to Bill and Dana that they may need to look out for me. Y'all about to drive me to my car. Because I feel like, now I could be paranoid. I'm glad I ain't smoked no weed today. Because I feel like a lot of eyes on me because they know who this guy is. Bill spots Lil Frankie in the crowd and points him out. Gray basketball shorts and a t-shirt. Goatee, dark hair, slick back. I consider approaching him, but I just get this feeling if I approach Junior now, it'll feel like I don't trust Senior to call. And if I rub Senior the wrong way, it'll all be over. So I keep it moving. And Bill and Dana walk me to my car. When we leave, Frank Sr. is sitting in the driver's seat of a golf cart, smoking a stogie, smiling and laughing with a few younger guys. I'ma be honest, the St. Rocco Fest threw me for a fucking loop. For the past 2 decades, this guy represented the ugliest of Bridgeport racism to me. And then we talked for a few minutes, and all of a sudden, I can imagine drinking a beer with him. A couple days later, I get a phone call from a number I don't recognize. Frank Sr. Says he heard I'm a good guy, and that he'll talk to me for the podcast. Just set up the date and time with his son-in-law. So I called the son-in-law, left some messages, and waited for him to call back. He didn't call back right away, but someone else did.
Repentance begs forgiveness, and it is in that light that I would recommend leniency for him.
The Reverend B. Herbert Martin.
The real beaters of Leonard Clark are still walking the street, ready to repeat their barbarous activities. That's right. Come on, Pastor.
Martin is 80 years old now. He splits his time between Mississippi, where he grew up, and Africa. A few years ago, he bought 40 acres of oceanfront property in Ghana. Says he's working to develop it into a center for transatlantic reconciliation to alleviate centuries of psychological pain as a result of the slave trade. He likes to joke that since he couldn't get his 40 acres and a mule in America, he got it in Ghana instead.
14th floor.
Our first meeting was on Juneteenth. The Reverend was visiting Chicago, staying with one of his daughters. Bill and I went over to this beautiful old high-rise where she lives in South Shore.
Hi,
how you doing? Reverend Martin agreed to spend 2 hours with us.
How are you? Good to meet you.
Good to meet you as well, and welcome.
You look young and good.
I had a lot of questions ready. But right before we got going, he told us he'd have to leave early. He had to go to a funeral.
But I think if we break off at 10:30,
okay,
then that'll give me a chance to drive over to the church.
That's when the pastor's cell phone rang.
You questions, you don't have a lot of time either.
Hey, Frank. Oh, okay, I'm getting ready to head over to church. Where are you?
Swear to God, it was Frank Caruso Sr.
Yes, why?
He was going to the funeral too.
You're not.
After damn near 3 years of rethinking and reviewing this story, I was finally in the room with the Reverend. Honestly, it made me a little anxious, but I wanted to give this dude the benefit of the doubt.
I knew firsthand what Leonard had experienced.
Before Martin had ever met Frank Caruso or even heard of Leonard Clark, when he was just a young man growing up in Mississippi, Martin got one of the worst beatings of his life from the KKK. He says a thing like that can break your spirit, but he didn't let it. Eventually, he moved up north to Chicago, where he experienced a different, more covert kind of racism. One form it took was segregation.
The racial politics of Chicago fed into that, under Boss Daley in particular.
When I sat with Martin, he talked about how Mayor Daley reinforced the color line with the Dan Ryan Expressway.
And then came the Dan Ryan under Boss Daley to really further separate the two communities.
Martin sees himself as a healer, someone who unites folks across racial lines. Like that meeting between Leonard and Frankie, he helped set that up.
Got Leonard and Frank Caruso's father, and we went to the prison house where Leonard and Frank Caruso Jr. actually reconciled their differences.
Leonard and Frank Jr. reconciled their differences? What differences? Leonard was just riding his bike. This prison meeting was one of the only things Martin wanted to recall in any detail. He says Frank Sr. drove him and Leonard to the prison.
Leonard, I wasn't too sure as to whether Leonard really was ready to talk with the guy who had been beating him.
Hold on. Whoa. Hold up. I want to pause the tape for a second. He's struggling for what to call Frankie. And finally he says,
the guy who had been beating him.
But let's keep going.
Come to find out, they were more congenial toward each other. And when Frank said, man, I am so sorry that all this happened.
Did he ever say he was sorry for doing it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to Leonard. In my presence, yeah.
I saw so many places where he worded it like he was sorry these terrible things happened to Leonard, but I never saw any remorse or even taking responsibility for his part in it.
Yeah, well, at the prison house, there was this sense of remorse and sorrow and apology. And Leonard just simply said, okay, I accept your apology.
Most people remember Old Dirty Bastard as the stage-crashing secret weapon of Wu-Tang Clan, a raw showman with a wild sense of humor who left a lot of people confused, especially after his death. But I want to tell you the full story of ODB, a man of many names, a god in hip-hop, and the ruler of his own destiny. I'm Khalik Allah. From USG Audio, Novel, and Talkhouse, it's ODB, A Son Unique. Available now wherever you get your podcast.
Reverend Martin has this refrain which is confusing as hell to me.
Reconciliation cannot be based on a lie.
He repeated it more than once during our time together.
Reconciliation cannot be based on a lie. You gotta tell the truth.
But Lil Frankie pled not guilty. And Reverend Martin said that the guys who really beat Leonard are still out there. And to me, those feel like pretty big lies. At the time, your opinion was that Frank Caruso Jr. was innocent.
You know, I don't think there's no innocence, in that kind of beating. And there were about 3 or 4 boys involved.
So you do now believe that Frank Caruso was involved in the beating?
I do. But to what extent, I don't know.
Wait, so I'm confused. Yeah. You said that you do now believe that he participated in the beating, but then you said that you thought they had the wrong person, that he wasn't there, that he wasn't involved.
No, he was there. But what I don't know, and it was never proven, as to whether he actually did it. He says he didn't. He says some of these other guys really kicked Leonard in the head and did all the other kind of stuff to him.
I felt like he was gaslighting me. I was hoping Martin would just acknowledge that he'd been wrong, for trying to save Frankie Jr. from prison time, for caring more about the attacker than the victim. I wanted him to say, look, I made some mistakes, but I've changed. Because then I could forgive him. Reconciliation can't be based on a lie, right? You gotta tell the truth. But do we not want people who attack and lynch people, do we not want them jailed and punished for those crimes?
You know how bad I'd like to see that.
So then why would you have advocated for no jail for Frank Caruso Jr.?
I didn't advocate for that.
Oh yeah, you said that this was what was so disturbing to me at the time, and why it's thrilling to talk to you now, these years later, and wonder if your views have changed. At the time, you asked the judge for a punishment that did not involve jail because
Oh, I hear where you was. Yes, I see. Oh yeah, I see where you are. There was that piece that I was dealing with. Well, how did I didn't know in those days? I need to review some of this.
This is the letter that you wrote to the judge.
Read it to me. That's too tiny.
Sure. Dear Judge Lacour, my appeal to you is for mercy in the sentencing of young Mr. Frank Caruso. I strongly believe that alternatives to a jail sentence would be more rehabilitative, redemptive, and transformative for this young man's life and future. Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, what I was dealing with was this whole question of restorative justice. And I still believe this, that jail does not really heal or change a person.
Abracadabra. I agree with that. How could I not? I've seen it. I've been to jail. And I wanted to dig in, but our time was up. He had to get to that funeral.
Hey, Frank, I'm on my way to the church.
Bill and I drove Martin to his old church.
I'm at 47th and Drexel. I'm on my way. All right, God bless son. Bless his heart. Y'all be safe driving.
Thank you, sir. After he got out of the car, Bill and I debriefed. He's a dancer. He is a fucking dancer. He is a finesser. He's like, what did you just say? How did you just talk around that shit? There was a moment where I wondered, am I doing my damn job here? I'm looking for answers and he's just spitting bullshit. And so, no, I don't think that Lenard Clark's relationship with Caruso is anything like what he just described. And I wonder if we'll ever get to the real, to just how real or not their relationship is. A year passed, still no call back from Frank Sr. But Reverend Martin agreed to a second interview on another one of his visits to Chicago. Reverend Martin.
We on it again?
We on it again. How you doing,
It's
man?
good. Excellent. Excellent. It's good to see you, too.
Appreciate you.
Hey,
Appreciate you.
great here. Great appreciation.
We picked the pastor up and drove him back to our office.
Ah, that's better. You got room back there, Yohance?
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
And this time, I was here to hold his feet to the fire. But it quickly became clear that it was going to be more of the same.
There cannot be reconciliation that's based on a lie. You gotta have the truth. Without the truth, there is no reconciliation.
I tried everything to get him to react. And telling him how I felt as a young man, still even denying involvement, it felt insincere. It felt like we were being duped. And so I was angry. And I just wonder what you say to your skeptics or even a 23-year-old me who was like, why are you siding with these folk? He gave me everything but an answer. I'm trying to discuss particulars, and he getting philosophical. At one point, he even referenced the movie Star Wars.
You have to decide which side of that you're going to be on. The side of light and love. Are you going to decide as this is why I watched the Star Wars. This guy called with all the black stuff on him.
Darth Vader.
Yeah, Darth Vader. Because the dark side, they talk about that.
Right.
They talk about the dark side.
I tried asking about Michael Cutler, the witness who got murdered.
I don't remember that incident, but then too, I wouldn't be surprised. Because when you're dealing with the dark side, you can expect anything to happen.
It was getting time to go. Then Bill asked about something a lot of folks had been whispering about.
There was this question of whether you were paid. Is that something that have the Carusos given you money or have?
No, the answer is no. I'm trying to remember this part. Was there ever an exchange of money for the work of the gospel that I was promoting? The answer is no.
You know, there's some of this language, like this word, Sambo, then they say Uncle Tom's and that stuff. When you hear that stuff, what do you say to that?
I would never tell you it doesn't hurt. When it really hurts bad is when your own people do it. But at some point you develop some tough skin because it comes. If you're out there, then you got to deal with what's out there. Slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, Shakespeare says. You get it, but you keep going.
But you can understand why, right? Because again, like...
Of course I understand it. I could easily be on the other side with them.
Right. It was frustrating, but it was also telling. He was spinning me left and right, invoking stuff I can't argue with, like Martin Luther King.
Dr. King said to me, hate cannot overcome hate. Only love can do that. Because hate destroys. It is like acid in a container. It just eats you from the inside.
Leading with love and light and the example of Jesus is huge to me too. And I commend and appreciate you for struggling to do it, because it's tough. You know, it seems to me though that to side with his attackers who were denying involvement, I don't see the love and the light there, because I don't see the truth there. Would you handle things the same way today again?
Perhaps even more so, I would.
Perhaps even more so, he'd do the same thing he did back then. That was not what I was hoping for. Herbert Martin's like a rapper. He makes a living evoking emotion with wordplay. And as a man of the cloth, he's granted a particular authority that makes it difficult to challenge him.
I never sided with the attackers. See? I adopted a radical love.
Come on, man. Don't piss on me and tell me it's raining. After months of waiting for Frank Sr. to call me back, it became clear that he doesn't want to talk to me about this. But as a journalist, I got a responsibility to give his son a chance to speak for himself. He's in his 40s now. Lil Frankie's not a big internet guy, but dig deep enough and you can find some things. A photo of him at a baptism, another one of him holding a little kid in a skeleton costume. You can see a mug shot from a DUI. And you can read a Chicago Tribune article about his wedding. He married a girl whose dad was convicted of running an illegal gambling business. The judge even ordered her dad not to talk to Frank Caruso Sr. at the wedding. On a Wednesday afternoon, right after Halloween, my producer Alison and I leave the city, and we drive out to the suburb where little Frankie lives. We got a couple different addresses and phone numbers for him that we pulled from public records, all right off the expressway. A subdivision with acres of land between the lots. Looks like we found the end of a long driveway that starts with a sign that says private property, no trespassing, beware of dog. We find little Frankie's property. We're at an open gate at the bottom of a long driveway that leads up to a mini mansion on a hill. There's somebody near the house, maybe little Frankie, standing way out there. Alison and I are sitting in the car deciding what to do next. Watching him, watch us. Alison dials his number, hoping to get him to come out and talk to us. This is where it gets confusing.
Oh, this is Frank Caruso Sr. The number I just put in was Frank Caruso Sr.
You see that?
Can we just have a quick face-to-face?
Yeah.
Why not?
But they're looking at us. Alison accidentally dialed his dad. But we decide we got nothing to lose. Let's see if he answers. Meanwhile, the guy near the house hops on an ATV or a bobcat or something and starts coming our way. As the bobcat gets closer, we see it's a white guy. Goatee, jeans, black t-shirt. It's Frankie Caruso. And he does not look happy to see us. All these emotions start coming back to me. The rage, the anger, the frustration. It's like I'm back in 1997. And right then, Frank Sr. answers the phone.
Hello?
Hi, Mr. Caruso. This is
The timing is crazy as hell. Junior pulled up on us. Alison asks if he's Frank Caruso Jr. He lies and says no. Meanwhile, Frank Sr. has answered the phone. He's heard all of this, and he's saying his son might be intimidated. It's a shit show. We told him we were recording.
This is your dad. We're recording right now. He says it's you. We think this is your dad on the line. That this is Frank Caruso Sr. And
he wants to speak to you.
This is, I think
it's super awkward.
I'm sorry. Do I need to move my car? I'm sorry.
Hey, can I holler at you for a second? No.
We're making it. Okay, I think this is him. This is a lot of calls going on at once.
Hey, let me speak to Yohance.
Okay, Yohance is right here.
I'm right here, Frank.
Okay.
Frankie drives back up the driveway, and Senior finally says definitively that he doesn't want to talk to us for the podcast. He says it can only stir up bad memories, and he doesn't think his son wants to talk to us either.
Yohance.
Yeah.
I admire you, and the Reverend does, but the reason I don't want to get sandbagged, because it's kind of history, and the media will pick this up and wonder what I'm doing, what he's doing. It could do nothing but hurt us. But I wish you the best. And I'd appreciate it if you would leave him be, as man to man.
No, so man to man, I respect that. And so it's as a journalist, we just got an obligation to ask him if he'd like to speak for himself since we're talking about him. But I'll respect a no. If the answer is no, I totally respect that 100%. In the end, Frank Sr. confers with his son, who declines to be interviewed, respectfully. Before Frank Sr. asked to go off the record, he said one more thing.
We're in contact with Leonard a couple times a week on the phone, and he comes to see me. Wanda comes twice a month, and we try to help her. We just want to be left alone, and not because of you. I know that you're an honorable person, but as a father, I have to feel what I know is right.
Frank and his son, Frankie, have no obligation to talk to me. I agree on that. But I think at the very least, Frankie does owe it to the city of Chicago to just say once and for all, I beat up this little kid and I'm sorry. Coming up on the finale of You Didn't See Nothing.
So, now I'm back here with Leonard. I'm finna just ask him some questions. So, tell me this. Why you been reluctant to tell your story, and why you choose now to tell your story?
You Didn't See Nothing is a production of the Invisible Institute and USG Audio. This podcast is written and reported by me, Yohance Lacour, with Bill Healy, Dana Brozost-Kelleher, Erisa Apantaku, and Sarah Geis. Sound design, mixing, and music supervision by Steven Jackson and Phil Dmochowski at the Audio Non-Visual Company. Original music by Taka Yasuzawa. Executive produced by Alison Flowers and Jamie Kalven for the Invisible Institute and Josh Bloch for USG Audio. Production support by Jennifer Sears. Fact-checking by Angely Mercado. Our key art is by Kenneth L. Copeland Jr. Archival audio used in this episode is from CNN, NPR, WMAQ, Paramount Pictures, and WBEZ. For more information, go to our show notes or visit our website, usgaudio.com.